So today I'm going to be kind of answering or going over some things that should be considered when looking at a car such as this, or looking to own one long term, or to fill a void as far as sports car, race car kind of goes. So like some pretty commonly asked questions. I'm just going to kind of go through and give you my take on, based on real life experience, real life ownership experience, so on and so forth. And I got my little notepad here to help me out a little bit, just keep me on track. First, I want to talk about, is this car a daily driver, or do I daily drive it? And the short answer is no. And I'll tell you why in a sec. And I think in general, if this car wasn't as modded as it was, I still don't think it would be a good daily. So the reason why I don't feel like my car specifically, or the reason I don't daily it, is because, one, I'm very fortunate and lucky. I have a second vehicle I can daily and use at free will, and I've never really had any issues with it, and it's been very reliable, and get in it and go. It's quiet, and no, it's not an electric car, but yeah, it is nice to just kind of climb into something and don't have to wait to warm it up and things like that. But I guess what I'm getting around to is, this car is extremely loud, and it sounds good too. Like, I've never gotten anybody saying, hey, your car sounds like crap, or you got to do something about that setup, or you need new pipes, or really any negative feedback, and even from strangers too. So, and I'm a firm believer in, you can make a Coyote loud, but can you make it sound good too? And I think everybody gets lost in just making it loud. So, and it's tough to find the right recipe for that. I think Gen 2s might be different with their recipe as far as a Gen 3 would go, as far as what pieces and components should you put together to get the most crisp sound, or the loudest, or what have you. So that's one factor. And I have to put, I don't know if you guys saw me earlier in the video, but I got to put earplugs in, or I have to wear like noise canceling headphones in here. Like, it's pretty serious. And my friends, they get a kick out of it, and they think it's funny, and I don't think hearing loss is funny. So I kind of take the initiative to kind of protect my ears. And I guess, do I feel bad about the people around me? Probably not, but I'm sure they understand that it's only for a short amount of time I'm coming through there. So yeah, being extremely loud makes it difficult. Being that this car is a 6-speed manual, and very modified as far as driveline goes. I have a McLeod 800 clutch. I also have MGW gearbox, if you guys haven't seen yet. And I also have a fully built Stage 1 billet transmission from Calimer. So, along with the headers and the intake, and the usual suspects with that. So it's for putzing around and doing a short drive, or going through the city real quick, or just stretching its legs. It's great, and it's a fantastic car to drive. And I would have never thought that driveline components would really help in the drivability of the car, and the overall feel and feedback. So it's a very engaging and very, what's the word, kind of industrial kind of a feel. It's not necessarily smooth. Everything's really nice and tight, and it's definitely a car that kind of, in a sense, gives you a little bit of a workout. And I have a hard time, and it's funny because this happens every single time. As soon as I hit the 2-hour mark in this car, driving like on a drive with buddies of mine, or I'm just kind of having it out for the day, I can't wait to get out of it. Like, I don't know what it is, but it never fails. As soon as I'm approaching 2 hours in this car, or using it for about 2 hours, I can't wait to just park it and just get back in the daily and head home, or take care of the rest of what I need to. So if that's any real life, real world experience with a modified, FBO Gen 3 Coyote, that might help you guys kind of determine whether, this is an option for you, as far as, maybe you don't commute a lot for work, you work from home, so it's easier to do shorter drives, and you're not really ever going to be in the car for very long, except for maybe, a drive or a cars and coffee event kind of thing. then it's definitely something to consider. And I, truthfully, I think that this car could be a daily driver if it was an automatic and it was not touched at all, like no modifications, no, like nothing, just straight from the factory, automatic. I think, as long as you have to deal with snow or like you live in a location with heavy rain or, lots of flooding and stuff, I think it would be a pretty great daily. But in my situation, in my circumstance and case, when you're dealing with a manual car, it's a little bit of an inconvenience for some people depending on the driving situations. And that can be kind of a hindrance or, a turnoff, and something to consider even if the car is stock. But yeah, definitely something that's heavily modified, a manual, extremely loud, extremely industrial, tight feedback, engaging experience car. I don't recommend as a daily driver, and I don't use mine as a daily driver. And the amount of gas I go through in this car is insane. I think I'm getting less than 10 miles per gallon. And truth be told, I walked into that. Like, I didn't really care. But if that's going to be a thing for you where, you want to have good gas mileage, but, you want to drive a NASCAR, you almost can't have both unless you're in the situation where you're not having to drive a whole lot and you have an automatic, it's not modified, you're not planning on modifying the car. You might be able to squeeze some decent gas mileage out of it. But just using this car for what I do use it for, which is 1 or 2 times a week. And I either take it to work or I'll take it to the gym here and there throughout the week. And obviously when the weather's good, today's pretty cold, but it's in the 40s, so I figured it'd be cool to do a quick little coffee run with you guys and just kind of talk about some more regular questions and just kind of address some different things that I don't think many people are talking about or addressing or taking in from the community, from maybe the comment section or things like that. I think everybody's just kind of stuck up on the, how fast can I go or how can I make the fastest daily or things like that. So, and another concept I really do stand behind is I really don't believe that your daily driver should be your, balls to the wall race car. To me, it takes away the occasion of the car. It takes away the experience a little bit. And I think that in some cases, like if I were to daily this, I feel like I would not lose respect for the car, but maybe get a little too comfortable with it or too comfortable doing different things in different situations and, trying to really push the limits of the car as I would continue to use it every day. So I'm really not a huge supporter of, my daily is a race car too, or is the race car. I definitely think that it's healthy to have a good separation between the two, because you could really ruin the experience of a really fun daily driver that's got enough power or is cool enough or is on a good platform and throw a bunch of stuff at it. And it's fun, but you're still not really in the full-blown race car kind of a realm, and you need to preserve the reliability of it. And some people will say, or I'm sure a few people may comment in the comment section, oh well, my daily it's modified, it's an all-arounder, and that's great. I applaud you for that if you have found that good balance and mixture for whatever platform that is you're driving or using or that you're a fan of. I praise to you. But a stat sheet and a reliability score doesn't win races in the same breath that you can buy a race car, but you can't race a house kind of a concept. And, so I think that there's something to be said for if you can find a good balance with that. But like I said, I'm really kind of a firm believer in, there has to be a separation. And really, I think that any race car or car that you really want to kind of break into that category or call it a race car, I really think that you've got to be in that 450 range and over, at least at the crank. Um, that again, that's just my opinion. That's my take. That's my overall view. It's not law. It's not set in stone. And I'm sure a few people will definitely, disagree with me on that or agree. Um, but I can't tell you how many times I've had people that, their horsepower definitely starts with a 3, and they pull up next to this car, and everybody's different as far as what they can afford to do and what they can stretch to do and what kind of platform they'd like to experience. And again, more praise to them. But you know when you're pulling up next to a car like this, where it obviously sounds modified, and you know these Coyotes come with 465 out of the box at the crank, which honestly I think is enough. And in terms of if you want to have fun with a car, and have a sports car. But when I have guys pull up next to me and they're in the threes as far as crank horsepower, and even if they're all-wheel drive, like, I mean, unless they're pushing a huge turbo and tons of boost, which is not normally the case, um, they get a rude awakening very quickly that that this car is not really something to bark at. Number one. Number two, when I utilize second into third gear and my back end is squabbling around, they usually knock it off pretty quick. And they either kind of just go back to normal driving and leave me alone, or in some cases they'll just take off and be super reckless. And it is what it is. People are going to behave how they behave. I can't control that, but in all honesty, I think it's pretty childish. And I respect all the different platforms and different builds and things, but it's really something to see when people get a big ego, or they can't understand, like, hey, like, this car is kind of at that next tier. And this isn't the fastest car around by any means, and especially around where I live. Like, I mean, I've run into guys at some meets where, I mean, they've got a 900 to the wheels on a C6 Z06, and the exhaust is coming out of the quarter panel. Like, obviously I'm not going to be able to really hang with that car, and that car is to the gills with power, and its setup is probably pretty insane. But that guy probably doesn't drive it more than a couple times a year, and that's the difference, where I can still use my car and it's not completely modded to the nth degree. And again, there's nothing wrong with that either. It's just when you're at the different tiers, or you're finding your way with your career, or whatever you can afford to kind of do or make happen, just keep in mind that unless you're pushing like 500 or more at the wheels, most people, at least around here, that's barely enough to get you invited out. And there I'm sure that people disagree with me, and I don't mean to ramble on about the daily drivability of this car, and then getting into what I think is adequate power and this and that, or mixing the figures to make my car seem cooler or better than it is. It's just a reality. And I mean, don't get me started on the regular everyday pickup truck drivers, because aside from those cats that like to pull up on me and cut it up with me in traffic, or get me to spin the wheels, or whatever they want me to do, or however they want me to react, those guys are insanely dangerous, and frankly just about as unhinged as you can get. And it's usually the older or middle-aged men in pickup trucks. And I won't say like what brand in particular is the worst, but that might even be a video for another day. But we're coming up on 15 minutes. I hope this was of a help to you guys, and just gives you kind of a general idea of some of the questions around reliability and daily drivability and things like that. And I'll make some other videos about what to expect as far as like routine maintenance on something like this. in general upkeep of the car and things of that nature. And I'm obviously going to make a couple more videos about some other cool things, or frequently asked, or questions that people want to know about, or things like that. So thanks for tuning in today, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.